but I'm not sure the Rangers will trade, to go home. But I'm not sure that the Rangers will trade him to Boston. I'm just not sure.
Well, I know
mean,
Gordon has some connections there, too. He used to be
of course
the assistant general manager, and then he was an interim general manager. Gordon was actually responsible for a couple of players that he drafted over there, one of them being Tuukka Rask, along those lines. So, I mean, there is a connection there. So I would understand the whole, homecoming thing. But there's a team, and I don't know if you've seen this, Leslie, that there's a team, and there's been some reports out there that the Rangers have been heavily, heavily scouting. Usually when you send 2 scouts to a game, that means you're really trying to look for something within an opposing organization, and that's been the Colorado Avalanche. So do you think that's another fit? I mean, listen, Kevin Hayes is a big player, size-wise, and he's a center.
He's 6'5".
And he's a center, which a lot of teams would love. And that is an appetizing, trade asset that the Rangers have there that a lot of teams would be certainly interested in. So there's no doubt, and I agree with you, there's a lot of suitors there. But do you think also, because of that report that we've seen and the fact that the Rangers are heavily scouting Colorado, could that be a possible destination for him?
Of course it's a possible destination. Colorado is a team on the way up. It is they're currently second in a wild card position in the Western Division, so they're going to be looking to add on. They're actually heavily fighting for a spot with both Vancouver and Anaheim.
They also have, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but I looked at it already, probably the most cap space going forward. They can absolutely assemble a team of unbelievable contracts, because when the deadline comes, because we have the cap space and then you have the deadline space, they could add up to $59 million in contracts come the deadline. So they have draft picks.
All right, I understand that, but really the Rangers are going to want something more than picks coming back. So when you start looking at the Avalanche, what you're thinking is, who are they willing to give up?
Yes.
And it's not clear to me that they're willing to give up enough, or they have enough of the assets that the Rangers want. That's the issue.
Well, what would a guy like Kevin Hayes do you think the Rangers would want? Would it be a roster player, or would it be more so a close to ready NHL player and then maybe a couple of prospects? What do you think the proper value for a guy like Kevin Hayes would be? If you were the general manager of the Rangers, what would you want?
If I was a general manager, I would want a young defenseman who potentially could be a number 2 to 3 defenseman and a top prospect. That's what I would want. Now, would I get it? I'm not sure. But what I'm thinking is that if the market is and the bidding is very competitive, that's what they might get. Because when we start looking at defensemen in the Rangers system, there is Condrey Miller, who looks good. He looked good, but far from ready in the World Juniors. There's Lindgren, but he's a stay-at-home guy, and we can talk about him a little bit. But somebody like Libor Hayek, who they really thought was going to be almost ready, doesn't look ready in Hartford. I really think that they would be looking for someone maybe of an ilk that the Colorado Avalanche may not be interested in giving away, because they too are a team that are sort of on the up, and I just don't see who they're going to give up.
Okay.
But,
so
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I really do. But I'm just not sure that they have what it will take.
No, that's understandable, and this is what makes being a general manager is a difficult task, of course, because you might have a few teams that are going to be in the bidding for this, and it's just a matter of. And you're right, with the Colorado Avalanche, they are on the up. They are trying to fight for a playoff spot, but at the same time, their general manager in Joe Sakic, he is not going to want to pay the farm for a guy like Kevin Hayes, who essentially is going to be a free agent, and you're not necessarily 100% sure you can get under a long-term contract. Who knows? It could happen because they'll have the money to do so, but that's the risk that you take when you go out.
But if I was Sakic, I wouldn't make that trade unless I could already have an agreement with Hayes to re-sign him. And I was trying to look at some comparables for Hayes, and we're definitely looking in the $6 million plus category.
Oh, absolutely. From what we've seen thus far from him,
6 to 7, I think.
Yeah, from what we've seen from him this year, it's finally the year of Kevin Hayes, where we didn't really see it too much over the last couple of seasons, but we kind of knew that this was the player that the Rangers were expecting to see when, he decided not to sign with the Chicago Blackhawks and then came over to the New York Rangers. A little bit more development under a coach that, handles young players a little bit better than the previous coach. So we obviously knew that. So Zuccarello and Hayes are your top two guys right now that would probably be number one and number two if the Rangers were going to start to look to trade. Who else do you have on your list for the New York Rangers that could possibly be on the way out in a couple of more weeks?
Okay, well, some of this will not be very popular, but let's talk about the chance of Jimmy Vesey being traded.
Okay.
I mean, he's having his best pro season. He's 25 years old. He's just coming into his own. Maybe he got a 2-year bridge contract last summer. He is playing better, but if he's not playing top 6 minutes most of the time, and very rarely. And I think that he is an attractive candidate. Now, if I was the general manager, I would be giving him more of a chance. I like his game, but there may be some team out there willing to give up quite a bit for Jimmy Vesey, and I would have to consider it.
That's a very interesting. That's an interesting, point that you bring up there, because I was thinking about that too, in a sense, when I wrote my article for New York Sports Day. But I felt as if that the Rangers would want to keep him as part of their long-term plan. But you're right; he's not getting the minutes that you think he would. Maybe there's something that David Quinn sees that possibly Vesey might not be a candidate to be getting top 6 minutes right now on this team. And you know what? Listen, I can absolutely see it happening, and it would be interesting to see the type of return that the Rangers could get. And that's where I go back to where that in that article that the general manager or an executive or whatever the case may be said that the Rangers have a little bit of everything, and you kind of just threw that right in there too with the likes of Jimmy Vesey. Another player, and I'm wondering if we're going to be on the same page with this one, that I've heard that teams have actually inquired about through a couple of reports, is Jesper Fast. He has, I believe, 2 more years left on a very awesome team-friendly contract. I think it's maybe a little over 1.4 or whatever the case may be. He's also a big candidate there, but you know what? I think he's become one of the more key players for this Rangers team that I wouldn't like to see go. What are your thoughts on that?
My thought is that he was a big favorite of AV. And while he's appreciated under Quinn, I think it's a different situation. And I think if he could be used as part of a package, to get somebody who the Rangers really want in the future, I think that he's a candidate. He's definitely a candidate. Definitely a candidate. I think a player they would like to see traded. There are some fans that would disagree with me, but if somebody would take Vladimir Mestikov, and get something good in return. I think I think the Rangers were hoping that he would live up to the hype, but he's really settled into. He's been around long enough. He's only age 26, but he's been around long enough that he hasn't developed into more than, like, let's say, a 35 to tops 40-point player per year. And if they could find someone else that's hoping that they can get more out of him, maybe that would be good.
And that's one of the candidates to possibly shed some cap space, because he signed I would say a little bit of a questionable, $4 million a year contract that I think a lot of fans and, were not so happy about, that Gorton kind of gave out that contract, because we kind of saw something similar with Ryan Spooner and it just didn't work out. It seems as if Nemestikov is on that path as well. So I would agree with you there as putting Nemestikov in that category of, hopefully, yes, somebody could take him and the Rangers don't have to really retain so much salary and they can kind of clear that off of their books. Is there anybody else that you see?
Oh, there are several that I want to talk about if we have the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just briefly, let's talk about Boone Nieves, who has now 7 points in 16 games. He's 25 years old and going to be a UFA. He can play center. He is a left wing. I think this may be the height of his value, to be honest with you. People think, oh, he's really finally come on. Well, maybe not. He's 25 years old. He's not played a lot in the NHL. I understand he's had some injuries, but why not trade him and see if you can get something more than what he's going to be, which is a bottom six player. So, I mean, I would do that if I could, but I wouldn't take necessarily a pick for him. I would want a prospect that I would think would be somebody that I believe is going to develop into a top six player. So he's another one.
That's pretty interesting. I wouldn't even I would have not even thought of that. As far as that's concerned.
7 points in 16 games. Why not?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Why not dangle him?
Absolutely. And it seems and we'll go down your list we'll keep going down your list here, but it seems like I think you can maybe answer this overall question before we continue with your list. Do you believe the New York Rangers are going to look totally different in about 3 weeks? Or do you think that as much as we throw these players on this list, that maybe only 3 or 4 of them get moved?
Well, I think 3 or 4 of them would be a big amount. Sounds like you got a dog there.
yeah. She's chiming in. She's chiming in too about how how she feels right now about the Rangers.
I think if 3 or 4 players are traded, that's a large amount. So I think I have about 8 players on my list, and I think 3 or 4 would be a large number. My guess is Zuccarello, Hayes, and one of the defensemen, which we're about to talk about, and maybe Nieves.
Okay, so who is the defenseman you believe? And I think we're going to be on the same page here, because it seems as if he has value.
I've got 3 of them here. McQuaid. And Stahl.
He was on my list.
And Shaddy. So, should we talk about them individually here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to start. I want to start more on the interesting note here. Is that you mentioned Shattenkirk, and I say that because he signed a contract here last season, thinking that he was going to be one of the answers in the team, kind of going forward, and then things fell apart. And really, for the year and a half that he's been here now, it really hasn't been as smooth for him because he's been injured and all of that. So do you think that was something that, might have been even considered had he been healthy and had he been producing? Or is this now just something where, all right, we tried it, it didn't work out, we understand you wanted to come here, you left a lot of money on the table to sign here to come play for your hometown team, but now what's the situation?
Well, I think there's a couple of issues here. One issue has to do with the fact that he's lost some speed with his injuries. And I'm just not sure that he